The red emergency lights pulsed across the bridge of the UES Nemesis, casting long shadows as Captain Rachel Stewart stared at the holographic display. Earth, humanity's cradle, burned in the distance, its once blue oceans now black with the ashes of fallen cities. The Galactic Council's attack had come without warning, without mercy, and almost without survivors. "Status report," Rachel called out, her voice steady despite the weight pressing down on her chest. The bridge crew worked at their stations, their movements precise despite the exhaustion evident on their faces. "Main reactor at 98%, Captain," Robert Wilson responded from his engineering station. The older man's gray hair was disheveled, but his eyes remained sharp. "The quantum cascade weapon is secure in the hold. All systems are green." Rachel nodded, running her fingers through her short blonde hair. The Nemesis represented humanity's last hope, their final card in a game they never wanted to play. The massive battleship stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its black hull absorbing light like a shadow given form. "Multiple Council warships detected," Lieutenant David Chen announced from the sensor station. His fingers danced across the holographic controls. "They're forming a blockade around Jupiter's orbit. Looks like they're expecting us to run." A bitter smile crossed Rachel's face. The aliens thought they knew humanity, thought they understood what cornered animals would do, but they had never faced humans before. Not really. The ship's AI, nicknamed Ada by Dr. Emma Wright, spoke through the bridge speakers. Its voice was feminine, but clearly artificial. "Captain, I've analyzed the Council fleet formations. They've left a gap in their defense screen, presumably to funnel us toward their trap." "Of course they have," Rachel muttered. She stood up from her command chair, walking to the front viewport. The Nemesis bridge offered a clear view of space through its reinforced transparent aluminum windows. "They think we're predictable." "Ada, show me the tactical display." A three-dimensional map materialized in the air before her. Red dots represented Council ships, hundreds of them, arranged in a complex web designed to catch fleeing prey. The single blue dot of the Nemesis pulsed defiantly among them. "Message from Admiral Boyd, Captain," Communications Officer Lisa Parker called out. He says it's time." Rachel took a deep breath. This was the moment everything had led to. Months of planning, years of secret development, and countless sacrifices had all converged on this point in time. She turned to face her crew. "The Council thinks they've won," she began, her voice carrying across the hushed bridge. "They believe we're running away, that we'll try to save what's left of our species by fleeing to the colonies." She paused, letting her gaze meet each crew member's eyes. "They're wrong." Amy Rodriguez, the tactical officer, straightened in her seat. "Weapons are hot, Captain. All missile tubes loaded. Point defense grid online. The quantum cascade weapon is primed," Brian Foster reported from his science station. The young officer's face reflected both fear and determination. "If we do this, there's no going back." Rachel walked back to her command chair, sitting down with deliberate calm. "The Council gave us no choice. They came to our home, killed our people, and expected us to break." Her fingers gripped the armrests. "Instead, they taught us how to hate." The bridge crew nodded in grim agreement. The Council's arrogance had led them to believe that humanity would follow the pattern of other species they had conquered, either surrender or flee to the outer regions of space. They never considered that humans might choose a third option. "Set course for the gap in their lines," Rachel ordered. "Make it look good, like we're desperate to escape." A dangerous smile crossed her face. "Ada, begin recording. I want the Council to remember this message." The AI acknowledged with a soft chime. Rachel looked straight ahead, her voice cold and clear. "To the Galactic Council, you should have killed us all when you had the chance. Consider this humanity's response to your offer of surrender. We're coming for you, not to negotiate, not to surrender. We're coming to show you why. Throughout human history, the most dangerous moment was always when victory seemed certain. The Nemesis carries humanity's verdict, and your sentence is total annihilation. Message recorded. Ada confirmed. Rachel nodded once. Release the message on all frequencies. Lieutenant Chen, take us in. Show these aliens how humans fight when we have nothing left to lose. The UES Nemesis moved forward, its massive engines pulsing with blue fire. To the Council ships, it would appear to be fleeing. They wouldn't understand their mistake until it was far too late. The hunt had begun. High Admiral Marcus Boyd stood in the hidden command center deep beneath the ruins of Mount Rushmore. The massive screens before him showed the UES Nemesis' progress through the Council blockade. Everything was going according to plan, though the aliens were too proud to notice. Another message from the Council. Sir, his aide reported, holding out a datapad. They're demanding our formal surrender within the next 6 hours. Marcus took the pad, his weathered face breaking into a slight smile. At 60 years old, he had spent 4 decades in the military, but nothing had prepared him for fighting aliens. The message glowed on the screen, written in the Council's formal diplomatic style. To the remaining military authority of Earth, your resistance is futile. Your primary battleship flees. Accept our terms now, and we will show mercy to your surviving populations. They really don't understand us at all, do they? Marcus muttered, setting the pad down. He turned to Dr. Emma Wright, who was monitoring the Nemesis's AI systems from her station. How's Ada performing? Emma's fingers moved quickly across her console. Better than expected. She's already calculating jump coordinates to Axium Prime. The Council's own navigation data is making our job easier. They never thought we'd use it against them. The command center hummed with activity. Dozens of operators worked at their stations, coordinating with the scattered remains of Earth's defense forces. But everyone knew the real fight rested with the Nemesis and its crew. Council ships are taking the bait, announced one of the tactical officers. They're pulling forces from their inner sectors to chase the Nemesis, exactly as we predicted. Marcus walked to the main tactical display. Red dots representing Council ships were clustering around the Nemesis' projected escape route. The aliens were so certain of their victory that they couldn't see the trap closing around them. Incoming transmission from Captain Stewart, called out a communications officer. Rachel's voice filled the command center. Admiral, we're approaching the first checkpoint. The Council bought our retreat. Permission to proceed with Phase 2. Granted, Captain, Marcus replied. Make them believe in their superiority for a little longer. The more forces they commit to chasing you, the fewer we'll face at Axium Prime. He turned to Emma. Doctor, start the countdown. When the Nemesis makes its jump, I want every surviving human colony to begin broadcasting false distress signals. Let's give the Council more targets than they can handle. Emma nodded, her expression grim. Already programmed. The colonies will create the perfect distraction. The Council thinks they're hunting down our last survivors. They won't realize these are automated broadcasts until it's too late. Marcus watched as more Council ships joined the pursuit of the Nemesis. Their arrogance was their weakness. They believed they had already won. After all, they had destroyed Earth's major cities, shattered its military bases, and scattered its people. In their experience, such a defeat always led to submission. Sir, Emma called out suddenly. Ada just intercepted a Council transmission. You need to see this. The main screen filled with an alien face, one of the Council's high commanders. The creature's scaled features showed what Marcus assumed was satisfaction as it spoke to its fleet. The humans flee as expected. Their primitive minds can only comprehend running or fighting. They lack the sophistication to understand their place in the galactic order. Once we capture their final battleship, their species will accept our guidance, as all others have. Marcus's jaw tightened. If they only knew what that primitive battleship carries. He turned to his staff. Send word to all remaining human forces. Operation Nemesis is proceeding as planned. When the Council realizes their mistake, I want them to remember this moment, when their victory turned to ashes in their mouths. The tactical display updated, showing the Nemesis approaching its first jump point. Behind it, nearly a third of the Council's fleet followed like hungry predators after wounded prey. They had no idea they were being led into position, drawn away from their homeworld by the promise of an easy kill. "Message from Captain Stewart," called out the communications officer. "She says, the fish are biting." Marcus allowed himself a grim smile. Humanity had spent years preparing for this moment, building the Nemesis in secret, developing weapons the Council couldn't imagine. Now all that planning would pay off. "Send one final message to the Council," he ordered. "Tell them, we accept that resistance is futile. Expect our complete surrender in 6 hours." That should keep them occupied until it's too late. As the message went out, Marcus watched the Nemesis disappear into its first jump point. The hunt was proceeding exactly as planned, but the aliens still didn't know who was really hunting them. The true war was about to begin. Lieutenant David Chen stared at his sensor readings with growing excitement. After 3 days of work, he had finally cracked the puzzle. The Nemesis could become invisible, not to eyes, but to the Council's detection systems. "Captain, you need to see this," he called out, waving Rachel Stewart over to his station. "Look what happens when we run the engines in this pattern." Rachel leaned over his shoulder, studying the data. On the screen, the Nemesis's energy signature seemed to fade away, becoming nothing more than background radiation. To any Council ship, they would look like a dead hulk of metal floating in space. "Will it fool their advanced sensors?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. David nodded eagerly. "Better than that. I copied their own sensor ghosts. We'll look exactly like debris from their attacks on Earth. They'll see exactly what they expect to see. Another dead human ship." Across the bridge, Security Officer Kate Martinez walked over to join them. Her dark hair was tied back tightly, her expression serious as always. "How long can we maintain this disguise?" "As long as we need," David replied. "The trick is to pulse our systems in a way that matches radiation patterns from destroyed ships. The Council's own arrogance works against them. They'd never bother to look closely at the wreckage they leave behind." Rachel straightened up, a plan forming in her mind. "Ada, show me the patrol routes for Council ships between here and Axium Prime." The AI displayed a complex map of shipping lanes and patrol routes. Hundreds of dead ships and chunks of debris floated along these paths, remnants of the Council's many victories. "We can hide in plain sight," Kate said, understanding dawning on her face. "Drift along with the other wreckage. They'll never expect a live battleship to move so slowly." Rachel nodded slowly. "How soon can we implement this, Lieutenant?" "The system is ready now," David said proudly. "I've already programmed the engine sequences. We just need to power down to minimal levels and let momentum carry us. The Council's own patrol ships will push us along with their wake, just like they do with all the other debris." The bridge crew listened intently as David explained his discovery. The Council's ships created gravitational disturbances as they moved through space. These disturbances pushed debris into predictable paths that led straight to the heart of Council space. "Begin powering down non-essential systems," Rachel ordered. "Keep the quantum cascade weapon at minimal power. We can't risk its signature being detected." One by one, the Nemesis systems went dark. The mighty battleship's engines cooled, its weapons powered down, and its shields dropped to their lowest setting. Only life support and basic navigation remained fully active. Picking up Council patrol ships, Lisa Parker announced from communications. 3 heavy cruisers passing within sensor range. The bridge crew held their breath. This was the first real test of David's discovery. If it failed, they would be detected and destroyed instantly. On the main screen, they watched as the Council ships approached. The alien vessels were massive, their hulls gleaming with advanced technology. They passed within kilometers of the Nemesis, their powerful sensors sweeping the area. "They're scanning us," David whispered, watching his instruments. Come on. The Council ships continued past without slowing. Their wake gently nudged the Nemesis, pushing it along with the rest of the debris field. "It worked," Kate said softly, almost disbelieving. "They really can't tell us apart from dead ships." Rachel allowed herself a small smile. "What's that old saying? Pride goes before a fall." The Council is so proud of their kills, they never imagined one might come back to haunt them. Over the next several hours, more Council ships passed nearby. None of them paid any attention to what looked like just another piece of destroyed human technology. The Nemesis drifted deeper into Council space, carried along by the very ships sent to hunt it down. At this rate, David calculated, we'll reach Axium Prime in about 2 weeks. Much slower than using our engines, but completely undetectable. Rachel finished. She turned to address the bridge crew. "Well done, Lieutenant Chen. You've given us the perfect disguise. Now we just need the patience to use it." The Nemesis continued its slow journey toward the heart of Council space. From the outside, it looked like a dead ship, just one more victim of the Council's power. But inside, the crew worked quietly, maintaining their systems and preparing for the moment when this ghost ship would reveal its true nature. The Council had created this graveyard of ships. Soon, they would learn that some ghosts bite back. Chief Engineer Robert Wilson's hands shook as he adjusted the quantum drive controls. The engine room of the UES Nemesis hummed with dangerous energy. Warning lights flashed across his console, but he ignored them. They didn't have a choice anymore. "The Council fleet's closing in," he muttered to himself. "We need something they won't expect." The ship's AI, Ada, spoke through the engine room speakers. "Robert, the quantum drive temperature is exceeding safe limits. Continued operation may cause permanent damage." Robert wiped sweat from his forehead. At 55, he was the oldest crew member on the Nemesis, and he knew every bolt and wire of the massive engines. "Sometimes you have to break things to win, Ada. Captain needs a miracle, and I'm going to give her one." Up on the bridge, Captain Rachel Stewart watched as 5 Council battleships closed in on their position. Their stealth plan had worked perfectly until a random patrol got lucky with a deep scan. Now they needed a new trick. "Chief Wilson reports ready, Captain." Lisa Parker called from communications. He says to hold on to something." Rachel grabbed her chair's armrests. "All hands, brace for emergency maneuvers." "Wilson, do it." In the engine room, Robert slammed the controls forward. The quantum drive screamed as it powered up far beyond its designed limits. Energy coursed through the ship's systems like lightning. "Jump in 3, 2, 1. Robert counted down. The Nemesis vanished in a flash of light, reappearing 2 systems away. Before the Council ships could react, it jumped again, and again, and again. "It's working," Robert shouted over the ship-wide comm. "The drive's creating multiple ghost images. Every time we jump, we leave an energy shadow that looks just like our ship." On the tactical display, confusion spread through the Council fleet. Their sensors showed the Nemesis in 4 different locations at once, each image as real as the others. "Council ships are splitting up," Amy Rodriguez reported from Tactical. "They're chasing our ghost images. They can't tell which one is real." Rachel allowed herself a fierce smile. "How many more jumps can we make, Chief?" "The drive's running hot," Robert answered, his voice tense. "But I've got at least 3 more jumps in there. Maybe more if we don't mind breaking a few things." "Council command signals detected," Lisa announced. "They're ordering all available ships to spread out and search each location. Their fleet is scattering." This was exactly what they needed. The Council's careful defensive lines were breaking apart as ships raced in different directions, each chasing what they thought was the real Nemesis. "Show me the tactical display," Rachel ordered. The holographic map appeared, showing Council ships spreading out like scattered leaves in a wind. "There, they've left a gap in their defense screen near Sector 7. Robert's voice came over the comm again. "Captain, I've got one more trick. If I reverse the quantum field right as we jump, we can create even more ghost images. Might burn out the drive completely. But do it, Rachel commanded. Everyone brace for final jump. The Nemesis's engines glowed bright enough to rival a star. Robert pushed them beyond their breaking point, ignoring the warnings screaming from every system. The quantum drive howled like a wounded animal. Jump, Robert yelled. The ship leaped through space one last time. As it jumped, the reversed quantum field scattered their energy signature across a dozen different locations. To the Council's sensors, it looked like the Nemesis had suddenly multiplied. Council ships are in complete disarray, Amy reported with satisfaction. They're getting contradictory readings from every direction. Their command structure is breaking down. The tactical display showed the result. The Council fleet had scattered completely, leaving their carefully planned defense in ruins. Ships chased phantom readings in every direction, each commander convinced they had found the real target. In the engine room, Robert patted the smoking quantum drive console. That's all she's got, Captain. The drive's burned out. We won't be making any more jumps for a while. Rachel nodded. You did it, Chief. Get some rest. You've earned it. She turned to the helm. Set course for the gap in their lines. Regular engines only, nice and quiet. The Nemesis slipped through the hole in the Council's defenses, its engines barely more than a whisper. Behind them, the Council fleet continued chasing ghosts, their perfect formation shattered by human ingenuity. Send word to Admiral Boyd, Rachel ordered. Tell him Phase 3 is complete. The path to Axium Prime is open. The mighty battleship moved silently through space while chaos reigned behind it. The Council's greatest strength, their rigid, organized military structure, had become their weakness. They never imagined that a single human ship would dare to trick their entire fleet. They would learn soon enough. Commander John Hayes adjusted his stolen Council maintenance worker uniform as he led his team through the alien space station's corridors. After 3 days of hiding in the station's cargo holds, it was time to move. Remember, he whispered into his throat mic, we look exactly like the grayscale workers they use for basic repairs. Just keep your heads down and your movements slow. His team, 4 of the best special operations soldiers from Earth, shuffled along behind him. The Council had conquered the grayscale species years ago and used them for menial work. No one ever paid attention to them. Security checkpoint ahead. Sarah Mills, his second-in-command, warned through the comm. She was monitoring the station's security feeds through a hacked terminal. John didn't break stride as they approached the checkpoint. 2 Council guards stood at their posts, their scaled bodies covered in ornate armor. They barely glanced at what they thought were just more grayscale workers. Lisa, you're up, John said quietly into his comm. Back on the Nemesis, Communications Officer Lisa Parker activated the forged work orders she had planted in the station's system. When the guards checked their tablets, they would see routine maintenance scheduled for this section. The guards waved them through without a word. The Council's arrogance made them blind. They never imagined anyone would dare infiltrate their command station. We've got 15 minutes to plant the false data and get out, John reminded his team. They shuffled into a large computer room, their gray maintenance suits blending perfectly with the actual grayscale workers. Mary Cooper, their tech specialist, moved to a computer terminal. Her fingers, covered in artificial gray skin, began typing carefully. The Council would see exactly what they expected, routine system checks by low-level workers. Planting the false intelligence now, Mary whispered, making it look like human refugees are gathering in the Centauri sector. John kept watch while she worked. Around them, real grayscale workers continued their tasks, never looking up. The Council had broken their spirit so completely that they ignored everything around them. Someone's coming, Sarah warned through the comm. High-level Council officer approaching your position. John's heart raced, but he kept his movements calm and submissive. Everyone, look busy. Remember, were nothing but background to them. A tall council officer strode into the room, his ceremonial cape flowing behind him. The alien's 4 eyes swept across the room, passing over John's team without interest. To the council officer, they were as worthy of attention as the cleaning drones that swept the floors. Mary continued typing, keeping her head down. The false data flowed into the council's military network, reports of human ships gathering, refugee camps being established, and supply lines being formed, all in the opposite direction from the Nemesis's true target. Data plant complete. Mary breathed into her comm. They'll find it during their next tactical review. John nodded slightly. Pack up. Nice and slow. We're maintenance workers finishing our shift. As they gathered their tools, Lisa's voice came through their comms. Council tactical meeting scheduled in 30 minutes. They'll see the false intelligence then. The team shuffled out of the computer room, keeping their heads down and their movements mechanical. They passed more council officers in the corridors, but none spared them a second glance. The council's own hierarchy had become their weakness. They couldn't imagine their lowly workers being a threat. Back in the cargo hold where they had hidden their escape pod, John finally allowed himself to relax slightly. Status report, Lisa. Council commanders are already gathering for the tactical meeting. Lisa replied from the Nemesis. First reports of the false data are being flagged for review. The team quickly removed their grayscale disguises and packed them away. The escape pod was small, designed to look like space debris, another trick they had learned from Lieutenant Chen. Mission accomplished, Captain, John reported to the Nemesis. The Council will be moving their forces to counter a threat that doesn't exist. Well done, Commander, Captain Stewart's voice came through. Get your team out of there. The real show is about to begin. As their pod drifted away from the station, blending in with the usual space traffic, John watched through a small viewport. Soon, the Council would discover the false intelligence. They would mobilize their forces to stop a phantom human resistance, leaving their home systems vulnerable. They never saw us, Sarah said quietly, all their advanced technology, and they didn't see us because they couldn't imagine their slaves being a threat. John smiled grimly. That's the thing about humans. We learn from everyone, even from those who think they've defeated us. The escape pod disappeared into the darkness of space, leaving behind a trap that would spring when the Council least expected it. Their pride had made them blind, and that blindness would cost them everything. Science Officer Brian Foster stood at his station on the Nemesis bridge, watching as the blue-green world of Axium Prime grew larger on the main screen. The Council's capital planet looked peaceful from space. It wouldn't stay that way for long. Final system check on the quantum cascade weapon, he reported to Captain Stewart. All readings are in the green. The weapon is primed and ready. Rachel nodded from her command chair. Show me the defense grid, Amy. Tactical Officer Amy Rodriguez brought up a detailed map of Axium Prime's defenses. Hundreds of satellites, defense platforms, and patrol ships surrounded the planet. But there was a gap, a small one created by their earlier deceptions. Council forces are still deployed to the Centauri sector, Amy reported with a tight smile. They took Commander Hayes' bait completely. Their home defense fleet is at 60% strength. The bridge crew worked silently, each focused on their tasks. They had come too far to make mistakes now. The Nemesis drifted forward, still running dark, still looking like debris to the Council's sensors. Message from Admiral Boyd, Lisa Parker announced from communications. He says, the sword is drawn. Strike true. Rachel stood up and walked to the front of the bridge. This is it, people. Everything we've planned, everything we've sacrificed, has led to this moment. She turned to face her crew. Are we ready? Brian checked his readings one last time. The quantum cascade weapon hummed in the ship's hold, its power barely contained. They had built it using the Council's own technology, stolen, reversed, and improved upon by human engineers. Weapon is ready, Captain, he confirmed. Target coordinates are locked on their primary command centers. Multiple council ships on patrol ahead. David Chen reported from his sensor station. They're following standard search patterns. Still haven't detected us. Rachel returned to her chair. Take us in, nice and slow, just like we practiced. Let their own debris field hide us until the last possible moment. The Nemesis crept forward, moving among the broken ships and space junk that orbited Axium Prime. The Council's own arrogance had created this shield. They never cleaned up after their victories, leaving the debris of defeated enemies as a warning to others. Council command signals detected, Lisa said suddenly. They're celebrating. Some kind of victory ceremony. They're broadcasting it across their networks. Put it on screen, Rachel ordered. The main display showed a grand hall filled with council leaders. They stood in their ornate robes, raising drinks in celebration of their victory over Earth. Speakers praised their own wisdom and power, mocking humanity's primitive attempts at resistance. Such perfect timing, Rachel said softly. Ada, begin recording. I want their own networks to broadcast what happens next. We're entering weapons range, Amy reported. Council defense grid is still focused outward. They're not scanning their own debris field. Rachel's hands tightened on her armrests. Brian, power up the quantum cascade weapon. Full power. No more hiding. The Nemesis systems came alive. Energy surged through the mighty ship as it shed its disguise. The quantum cascade weapon's power signature blazed like a newborn star. Council defense stations are detecting us, David shouted. They're raising alerts. Too late, Rachel said calmly. They're far too late. Brian, target their primary command center. Let them see us coming. Amy, clear us a path. The Nemesis's weapons opened up, destroying the nearest defense platforms before they could respond. Alarms blared across the Council's networks as they realized a human battleship had penetrated their inner defenses. Council ships are turning to engage, Amy reported. But they're scattered, disorganized. Our false intelligence worked. Their command structure is in chaos. On the main screen, they could see panic spreading through the Council's victory celebration. The alien leaders who had been boasting of their superiority moments before now scrambled for safety. Quantum cascade weapon at full power, Brian announced. Firing solution ready. Rachel stood once more. Send this message on all frequencies. To the Galactic Council, you should have studied Earth's history better. You're not the first empire to think victory was certain. You won't be the first to learn how wrong that assumption can be. The Nemesis moved into its final firing position, its black hull reflecting the light of Axium Prime's sun. After all the sneaking, all the deception, they had finally arrived at their moment of truth. Weapon locked on target, Brian said quietly. Ready to fire on your command. Rachel's voice was steel as she gave the order they had crossed the galaxy to give. Fire. The quantum cascade weapon powered up for its first and final shot. The Council was about to learn the price of underestimating humanity. The quantum cascade weapon fired. And for a moment, the space around Axium Prime lit up brighter than a supernova. Brian Foster shielded his eyes from the glare on his science station screens, watching as the weapon's energy rippled across space in waves of blue-white light. Direct hit on the Council's central command, he reported, his voice filled with awe. The cascade effect is beginning. On the main screen, they watched as the weapon did its work. It didn't destroy buildings or kill people. It did something far worse. The quantum cascade tore through the Council's technology like a virus, spreading from device to device, system to system. Their defense grid is going dark. Amy Rodriguez called out from tactical. Their ships, they're losing power. Everything's shutting down. Captain Rachel Stewart stood at the center of the bridge, watching as humanity's revenge unfolded. Send the message, Lisa. Let them hear us now. Communications Officer Lisa Parker opened all channels. Rachel's voice rang out across every speaker and screen in Council space. People of the Galactic Council, your technology is now useless. The quantum cascade weapon was built from your own arrogant mistakes. You left your destroyed enemies in orbit as trophies. We studied that debris. We learned your weaknesses. And now, every piece of advanced technology in your empire will fail. On Axium Prime's surface, chaos spread as the cascade effect worked its way through their systems. Flying vehicles fell from the sky, forced to make emergency landings. Power grids failed. Communication networks went silent. Council ships are dead in space, Amy reported with satisfaction. Their weapons, engines, everything, just gone. David Chen's sensor readings showed the effect spreading. The cascade is moving through their jump gates. It's reaching other council worlds. Their entire civilization is going dark. Rachel nodded slowly. Ada, show me the council chamber. The main screen displayed the grand hall where moments ago the council had been celebrating. Now, panic reigned. The mighty rulers of 1,000 worlds scrambled in darkness as their technology failed around them. Incoming transmission, Lisa announced. It's the Council High Commander. They're surrendering. The alien leader's face appeared on screen, lit only by emergency lights. Fear had replaced its usual arrogance. Please, we surrender. Stop this attack. We'll give you anything you want. Rachel's voice was cold as space itself. You still don't understand. This isn't a negotiation. The cascade effect can't be stopped. You wanted to rule humanity. Now you'll have to survive like we did, starting over from scratch. Reports flooded in from across council space. The quantum cascade spread through their civilization like a tide, reducing the mighty council to their most basic technology. Ships drifted powerless in space. Advanced weapons became useless metal. The empire that had ruled the galaxy through technological superiority watched helplessly as that technology died. Message from Admiral Boyd, Lisa said. The colony ships are launching. Humanity's survivors will begin reclaiming Earth and our other worlds. Rachel smiled for the first time in days. Send word to all human survivors. The Council's power is broken. Their technology is gone. They'll spend the next 100 years rebuilding their civilization from the ground up, just like they forced us to do. Brian's console beeped with new data. Captain, the cascade effect has reached its final stage. The Council has lost everything more advanced than basic electrical systems. They're back to a pre-space age level of technology. And the best part, Amy added with grim satisfaction, we built the quantum cascade weapon so it only affects their specific technology patterns. Our systems are completely safe. Rachel looked at the image of Axium Prime on the main screen. The once gleaming capital of the Council now lay in darkness, its mighty towers no longer shining with power and pride. Send one final message, she ordered, to all Council worlds. Remember this day. Remember that humanity didn't just survive your attack. We turned your own pride against you. You thought technology made you superior. We proved that the human spirit is stronger than any weapon. The Nemesis hung in space above the powerless Council world, a dark reminder of the price of underestimating humanity. Behind it, human colony ships emerged from hiding, ready to rebuild what was lost. Take us home, Rachel ordered quietly. Our work here is done. As the mighty battleship turned away from Axium Prime, its mission complete, the crew knew they had written a new chapter in human history. The Council had tried to break humanity's spirit. Instead, they had learned a lesson as old as Earth itself. Never corner something that fights hardest when defeat seems certain. The age of the Council was over. The age of humanity had begun.